Mark chapter 5. If you're using the Bible that's in the pews, it's in the second half of the book on page 51. Mark chapter 5 and beginning at verse 1. Jesus and his disciples arrived on the other side of Lake Galilee in the territory of Gerasa. As soon as Jesus got out of the boat, he was met by a man who came out of the burial caves there. This man had an evil spirit in him, and he lived among the tombs. Nobody could keep him chained up anymore. Many times his feet and his hands had been chained. But every time he broke the chains, and every time he smashed the irons on his feet. He was too strong for anyone to control him. Day and night, he wandered among the tombs and through the hills, screaming, cutting himself with stones. He was some distance away when he saw Jesus. So he ran, fell on his knees before him, and screamed in a loud voice, "Jesus, Son of Most High God, what do you want with me? For God's sake, I beg you, don't punish me." He said this because Jesus was saying, "Evil spirit, come out of this man." So Jesus asked him, "What's your name?" The man answered, "My name is Mob. There are so many of us." And he kept begging Jesus not to send the evil spirits out of that region. There was a large herd of pigs nearby feeding on a hillside. So the spirits begged Jesus, "Send us to the pigs and let us go into them." He let them go. And the evil spirits went out of the man and into the pigs. The whole herd, about 2,000 pigs in all, rushed down the side of the cliff into the lake and were drowned. The men who had been taking care of the pigs ran away and spread the news in the town and among the farms. People went out to see what had happened. And when they came to Jesus, they saw the man who used to have the mob of demons in him. He was sitting there, clothed and in his right mind. They were all afraid. Those who had seen it told the people what had happened to the man with the demons and about the pigs. So they asked Jesus to leave their territory. As Jesus was getting into the boat, the man who had the demons begged him, "Let me go with you." Jesus would not let him. Instead, he told him, "Go back to your family and tell them how much the Lord has done for you and how kind he has been to you." So the man left and went all through the 10 towns, telling what Jesus had done for him. And all who heard it were amazed. I don't know whether you have a nickname, something that you're known for within your family, or maybe a name that you were given at school that just describes something that you were good at, or something that you used to say. Many of us have those sorts of nicknames or titles, and some of them are worth having. If you're known as the person who scored the winning runs in the final of the World Cup, that's a great description, isn't it? If you're described as the scientist who discovered penicillin, then you're quite happy to have that attached to your name. Of course, our Queen is now known as the one who has ruled her country for the longest. Quite a description for her. And in the Bible we find some similar situations. We will find the man who was born blind. In the early church century there was a man called Chrysostom. And he was a very, very well-known speaker. and it was not just what he said, but the way he said it. And he was called the Golden Tongue. Some descriptions are not quite so pleasant, are they? And I don't know what the man here that Mark is describing would have thought to just be called the man who had been possessed. I mean, I think I might have preferred my name, really. And yet, when you stop and you think about it, that description, that nickname, as it were, would always give him a great opportunity to tell his story. Last week we thought about David and David's story, and how through the psalm he told the story of what God had done for him. And this morning, as we look at this chapter 5 of Mark's Gospel, and we see the story of what Jesus did for this man. And at the end of it, Jesus will simply say to him, now, go home. Go back to your family. And just tell them how much the Lord has done for you. And that's what it is to be a witness of Christ. Don't worry too much about the complications of theology. Understanding all the background of the history books and the prophets. There's a place for that, and it's important. But the first thing in being a witness for Christ is simply telling our story and saying, this is what he has done for me. So we begin, as the chapter does, with the man's terrible condition. Because he was a man who was oppressed by unclean spirits, unclean or evil. That means that they were servants of Satan. Their desire was to steal and kill and destroy. Their desire was to bring as much harm and inflict as much pain and suffering as they could. Because that's what Satan tries to do. And that's what his demons do. But what we see at many places in the Gospels is that Jesus comes and he puts a stop to that. He binds those evil spirits. He stops what they are doing. And he sets people free. Now I want to say, beginning this morning, that it is not true to say Mark was just a primitive person with a sort of superstitious mind that thought that all sickness was somehow due to evil spirits. The Gospel writers knew the difference between sickness and the presence of evil spirits. They're quite clear on the difference. Nor is it true to say that they confuse demon possession with things like fits or insanity. If we had time to go through the end of Matthew chapter 4, I could show you quite clearly there was no confusion in their minds. They knew when it was simply physical sickness. They knew when it was that somebody had a mental disease. They knew what it was when somebody had a fit. But they also knew what it was when somebody was oppressed by evil spirits. And what we have here in Mark chapter 5 is a very specific condition. In this situation, where a whole mob of evil spirits had come and taken a grip on this man's life. Mark's description is interesting. He says a man in or a man with an evil spirit. It suggests to me somebody who was under the power or in the grip of an evil spirit, or here many of them. Such is his condition. And it is to this man in this wretched condition that Jesus brings freedom and new life. His terrible condition is described for us with several phrases. We're told in verse 2 and verse 3 that he lived among the tombs. I don't know if the Jews did what many of us sometimes do. Maybe at the anniversary or special occasion, we go to the graveside of a loved one and we take flowers. If we need to, we just tidy things a little bit and we place the flowers there. And for a moment again, we remember. And we give thanks to God for their life. Nothing strange, nothing weird about doing that. But this is different. Mark tells us that this man, he lived among the tombs. That's where he made his home. That's where he spent his life. And that's part of his terrible condition. That's where he is. Maybe it was his own choice. Maybe it was he had no choice. Maybe the people of the town had in effect forced him out and made him live there. But the tombs were regarded as a place where evil spirits were. The onset of evening and dark was a time when they were thought to be most active. And if you're there in the dark on your own, it must have been a frightening and rather scary time. But this is his condition. It's due to the influence of these demons upon his mind. But then we find he had superhuman powers. Mark is not describing to us somebody who's preparing for the world's strongest man. He's not describing for us somebody who is going to do a Houdini-type trick. No, this is somebody who has serious superhuman powers. You see, every attempt to bind him had failed. Whether they wanted to bind him for their own protection or whether it was for his protection, we're not told. But we are told that if they tied him with ropes, he snapped them. If they tied him with chains, he broke them. Literally, the text says, no longer, no one could bind him. And all the knots and the no's and the no longers given to emphasize the severity of this problem. The extent to which he was held in the grip of evil spirits. They could speak through his voice, which we'll see in a few moments, but they could also act through his limbs. They had taken at least serious control of this man and of his personality. Perhaps the phrase that shows us most the depth of his suffering, it's there in verse 5. Day and night he wandered among the tombs, screaming and cutting himself with stones. And both verbs there are written in a way that describes repeated action. It wasn't just one scream now and again. This was screams that he repeated again, again, and again. Through the day, through the night. Such was the torment and the trouble that he was in. And the cutting of himself with stones, again, describes action that he repeated. It wasn't just an occasional act. He takes the stones, he finds the stone where it has the sharp point, and he's hitting himself with it. Because the verb is the verb that's used for chopping down a branch off a tree. Not just sawing it neatly, but taking something and just hacking away at it until you break it off. And that's the word that's used. That's the description that we have. He's got these stones and he's just hacking away at himself. And the first part of the verb in the Greek is a little preposition that adds a sense of force or intensity to it. So this wasn't just a little graze on his hand. It wasn't just a minor thing. He was seriously injuring himself and causing himself pain. And both the screams from the torment of his soul and the cutting and the bleeding from his physical actions are part of the desperate condition that he was in. Not because he was a madman, but because of the presence and the oppression of many demons. That was his condition. The account that we have in Mark 5 is the wonderful account of how Jesus changed and transformed all of that. So Mark moves on from the man's terrible condition to describe the man's meeting with Jesus. At first he rushes at him. Some commentators think maybe to attack him. And yet what happens is as he gets very near to the presence of Jesus, he is on his face. He realizes the awesome power of Jesus. And knows that the purpose of Jesus coming into the world was to destroy. And he's to undo, to unravel everything that the demons did and to set men and women free. And so as this man meets with Jesus, we see that Jesus' word changes everything. You see, the word of Jesus is powerful to save fully. It was here in Mark chapter 5, and it is today. Amen? His power is still the same today. And Jesus only needed to speak the word, and it would open the eyes of the blind. He only needed to say the word to the lame man, get up, and he could walk. Jesus only needed to say the word to the leper, be clean, and he was. And now, Jesus only has to say the word, and the demons are cast out, and the man is set free. Hallelujah. The word of Jesus is enough, because it is a word of power. It is a word that rescues and saves. It is a word that imparts life. Now, verse 7 and 8 may seem as if for a moment that the demons want to begin to argue. And they plead that they may not just be driven out of the reason. But notice something. They only are allowed to enter the pigs because Jesus gives them permission. They can't do anything in the presence of Jesus unless he permits it. Because he is stronger. He is greater. He is more powerful, and his word brings deliverance and freedom and salvation. Now, there are many questions we might have about the passage, about the pigs and then running down the hill and all of that. Danger is we get sidetracked from the really important thing, which is seeing the wretched condition the man was in and the tremendous salvation that came as he meets with Jesus. I want to say to you this morning, Jesus can speak a word of power into each of our lives today. Our condition may not be exactly the same. And praise God, if we aren't oppressed by thousands of demons, then that's great, and thank God for that. But there are other conditions, other situations we may be in. Maybe some who live with a guilt. You've confessed something of the past. You believe God can forgive you. And yet somehow you just can't get away from the guilt. It doesn't matter where you go. It doesn't matter what you do. It doesn't matter. You just can't get free. It's like a stalker. It just follows you everywhere. You wake and you turn over in bed at night and the guilt is there. So you turn back the other way and it's already there before you got over the other side. Friends, Jesus can speak the word of power into your life to bring not only his forgiveness, but also freedom from guilt. Because that's the gospel. That's the power of our Lord Jesus. And at the end of the service, there's always the opportunity here for prayer. If you need that word of Jesus into your life, then come and let someone pray with you. Maybe it's not guilt, maybe it's fear. Fear of something, I don't know what. And again, Jesus can speak that word of power into your life that can set you free. Or maybe it's not so much guilt or fear, it's a habit that we can't control. A wrong habit. Maybe a problem with gambling. Maybe a problem with alcohol. Maybe a problem with swearing. Maybe a problem with the way that we use our tongue. And we prayed about it, we rebuked it, and we tried our best to get rid of it, and nothing seems to change. Now, I'm not saying there's one simple word this morning and then nothing else has to happen. There's still a discipline that we have to exercise. There's still a walk of faith that we need to take. There is still an effort that we have to make to be holy in the power that God gives to us. But what I am saying is that our Lord Jesus can speak words into our lives that can break these things. Break them and set us free. Because that's what the people found. The people of the town were told what had happened and they'd been out to see. It wasn't what they were used to seeing. And it wasn't what they were familiar with seeing. It was different. Because they see a man whose life had been set free. The evil spirits that had troubled him, they were gone. The spirits that caused him to injure himself, they were gone. The spirits that caused him to cry out because of the torment of his soul, they're gone, all of them. And the good news Bible says, we're a mob. That is, there's a lot of us. And when you think about a mob, it's usually a group who want to cause trouble and inflict pain and hardship. And that's what these demons have been doing. In the New International Version, it says legion, which simply means many. Legion perhaps could be as many as 4,000 to 6,000. Now, we're not told to try and count and guess exactly how many, but what it tells us is there were many. But there is not even one left. Because the word of power of Christ has driven them all out. Is that not amazing? When you think there's 1,000, 2,000 or whatever, and not even one is left to trouble him anymore. Because he's set free. They no longer speak through his mouth. They no longer cause him to cut and injure himself. They no longer cause him to be fascinated with death. They no longer torment his mind and his soul. He's set free. I want to say again, this is the specific condition of this man. At the same time, it also illustrates beautifully for us the gospel. For in the gospel, Christ comes to set us free. He forgives us from every sin. He removes our guilt. He removes those fears. He brings us out of darkness and into light. He sets us free from all that oppresses us. Brings us into life. A life that is set free and a life that is transformed. I hope you saw that as I was reading. I tried to slow down very much when I came to verse 15. When they came to Jesus, they saw the man who used to have the mob of demons. Used to, not anymore. Praise God. But then it says this, he was sitting there, clothed, and in his right mind. And in those three simple little expressions, I see a transformed life. He's sitting. Now, since the people have come out to see Jesus, and they see the man sitting, I assume he must be sitting at the feet of Jesus. How different is that from seeing him at a distance and rushing at him, and then screaming at him? Now he's sat quietly at the feet of the Lord. Does that remind you of anybody else? That moment of Mary and Martha, when Mary is simply sat at the feet of Jesus. And so now this man, his mind is no longer tormented by evil spirits. Rather, his mind and his faith is nourished as he listens to the words of Jesus. Is that not a great transformation? Sitting at the feet of Jesus. And then it says he's clothed. Now there must be a reason why Mark has included that. Now, I'm somebody who wants to be very careful, because I don't think we should try and read between the lines. We need to be very careful when we work with the text of God's Word. The very fact that now he is clothed would suggest to me that perhaps before he wasn't. Part of his troubled state was that he didn't dress properly. Maybe just a simple cloth around his waist that gave him some modesty. Maybe. Or maybe not. The point is, Mark is now saying, here is somebody who is no longer oppressed by evil, but someone who is free. Someone who is now dressed normally. We've all come to church this morning with our clothes on, because that's normal. That's the way that it is. Okay, well, we can maybe debate that one, but generally speaking, that's the normal way. And Mark is saying, here is the change. No longer oppressed, but free and transformed. And then he says, in his right mind, no longer troubled, no longer cutting himself, screaming out, but in his right mind. Man who now has peace. And once there was such turmoil within, now he has peace. And those descriptions tell us something of what it is to become a Christian. Because it's to be set free. It's to come and sit at the feet of Jesus as Lord and Saviour. It's to know him put things back in the right way. To forgive us, to cleanse us, to make us his. To restore us, to impart to us a new life. He does that through his word. Because his word today is as powerful as it's always been. Mark then concludes this account in which he describes for us the man's story. It began with the man's wretched condition, moved on to the man's meeting with Jesus that transformed his whole life. Now we come to the man's testimony. It's simply this. Look how much the Lord has done for me. The people are afraid. They want Jesus to leave. And as Jesus is getting into the boat, the man wants to go with Jesus. Well, wouldn't you? When your life has been so dramatically changed like that, wouldn't you want to go with him? And yet Jesus says to him, not now. What's important is you go back to your home and to your family. You share with them how much the Lord has done for you. What grace to send him back to his family. Family who had rejected him, maybe pushed him out, maybe disowned him. What grace in that man's heart too to go back to that family in order to share with them what the Lord had done for him. I believe if we can live as Christian men and women in our homes, as Christian husbands and wives, as Christian parents, as Christian children, then I think we can live the Christian life anyway. Because home is the hardest place to do it. Because home is where we are now. Home is where we let our guard down. Home is where the mask comes off. Home is where everybody sees everything. The Lord sends us often to our home. It's tough. However, we do need to be careful in reading this, because for many people who come from Muslim or Hindu or maybe a Sikh background, it's actually not wise to just simply say, well, just go back home and tell them everything. You need to find the way to do that. It's the patience in giving time to do that. Because often people will be, not necessarily just given the cold shoulder, but actually pushed out of their home, simply disowned by their family. I'll tell you the story of somebody next week. So we need to be careful. We need to be wise. For many of us, most of the time, God says, go back to your family. That's where the story begins. And when you're there, simply tell them how much the Lord has done for you. And that's what Jesus says to them. Tell them how much. How many things, or how great the things are that the Lord has done for you. So we took those words from Psalm 103. He forgives your sins. He heals your diseases. He redeems your life from the pit. He crowns you with love and compassion. Because the Lord does such great things. Only the words of that hymn: ransomed, healed, restored, forgiven. And then he says, well, who like you shall sing his praise? If that's what God has done, then you should sing his praise. I should tell the story of what he's done. Our story may not be like this man here. It may not be that dramatic. And that's okay. Our story may be much more like Paul. Paul, who was very religious, went to the synagogue when he should. Tried to keep the law as best that he could. Thought that he had done a pretty good job of doing so. Thought that he was getting there, making his own righteousness. And yet into that life, the Lord spoke one day. But once again, that was quite a dramatic moment. You know, maybe some of us are sitting here thinking, well, my story is not as dramatic as that. That's okay. Doesn't matter. What matters is that into our lives, however ordinary or humdrum or maybe boring at times, however ordinary our life may be, what we know is that Jesus has spoken into that life. Because however good we try to be, we will fail at some point. However bad we may have been, if that song say, your grace goes deeper still. Or if we're somewhere in between, we know we need his forgiveness. We know his power to set us free. To live a life that truly is transformed. If your story is not dramatic, don't make it dramatic. Just tell it the way that it is. This is who I am. This is what he has done for me. As Jesus said to the man, go and tell your family that the Lord has mercied you. Now I know that's not really English. It's just a shame that we have to say, have mercy. Because I prefer to take the verb form. It's more descriptive. It's more expressive. The Lord has mercy us. Because everything comes out of his mercy. He forgives us because of mercy. He heals us in his mercy. He transforms us in his mercy. He breaks the power of sin in his mercy. And that then is our story. We may not have a nickname like this man had, but we do have a story. We have a story of what God has begun to do in us. Do you remember early in the book of Acts, there's that moment at 3 o'clock in the afternoon, Peter and John go to the temple. It's a time of prayer. And there's a layman who sat there and he's asking them for money. And Peter looks at him and he says, I don't have any money to give to you. And then Peter says to him, I can give you what I do have. Now, I don't have silver and gold, but I can give you what I do have. And that's what it is to be a witness for Christ. To tell our story. To say, this is what he has done for me. Praise his name. Amen.